Check 1, 2. Hello, friends, and welcome to the closing of The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante. I've got the music playing in the background. I'm not going to show the game or anything. We're not going to play it. I wanted to talk through some of it. I wanted to talk through some of the things that this game has taught us along the way. And I wanted to include this as a separate video in case some of you stumble across this and this is your introduction. If this is your introduction to the game, then welcome. You're watching the very last video in the playlist. And I mean, even now as I'm recording this, I'm debating tacking this on to the final episode, but I think I'm going to make it separate because I wanted to talk about some of the things that we didn't get to talk about during the story, and some of the things that have really stuck with me since finishing the game. You guys haven't seen this because I didn't show you everything. I think I mentioned in the last episode that it was like a long episode or something, and I think I ended up cutting out a bunch of what I did because I ended up, and even without trying to record it, I went back and tried to get some different endings. And constantly what I'd find out is I'd have to be going back over and over and over to change decisions that were made in order to get a different ending, in order to try to overthrow Sophia. But then there were like 4 or 5 other decisions way, way further back that I would have had to have undone in order to overthrow Sophia. And then there was my family. You watched what happened with my family in the last episode. In order to protect them, there would have been other decisions I would have had to have made. I'll throw this out there as a spoiler. Like, Lydia Brante dies of illness, and there's nothing I could have done. If I had saved Lydia, I could have gotten my family out of the city before the revolt, and then none of them could have been harmed. But even then, there's no guarantee that getting them out of the city would have saved them. There's no way to save Burmp. There's nothing that you can do. There's so many decisions along the way, and it got me really thinking through some things on how these parallel to life and to faith, because we oftentimes get very tied up in the things that we think that we can change and the things that we think we can do. Like right now, our pastor said something at church, and I was super happy and excited because we had a man get saved at our revival service. I'm not particularly fond of this particular preacher that was brought for our revival service, but still, God works. And one of the things I've always said is I do think that he was spreading some falsehoods about Scripture, and so what I always tell people is God can speak through half-truths, but that doesn't mean that we need to speak in half-truths, and it's kind of been my problem. But one of the things that our pastor said that bothered me is that if we didn't have this revival, he might not have come. But then I'm thinking, but we don't know that, and we can't say that because we don't know the hearts of an individual man, and we don't entirely know how the Spirit moves. We have some evidences of it, but we don't know. There's things out of our control. Like in the game, there are things that are out of our control. The revolt was coming one way or another. I think you guys saw at one point when you watched the last episode, no matter what decisions you made, whether you chose to be involved or not, that bar of the uprising, of the mayhem and the violence just kept to tick on upwards, and even when it was all the way full, something else would happen that would cause it to show that it would still be increasing if it wasn't already at the maximum point. There's so many things along the way that some things you could have changed. I could have done something to get my family out of the city, but I couldn't have stopped the riots and the mayhem. There's only so much that we can do. And the reason I kind of want to talk about that is because God isn't asking you to save the whole city. God isn't asking you to stop everything. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of old-time pastors like to use things like, they like to use the life of Moses or the life of Paul, and they like to relate that to the everyday individual. The reality is you're not Moses. I'm not Moses. You're not Daniel. I'm not Daniel. You're not Paul. I'm not Paul. There's only one Moses. There's only one Paul. There's only one Ezekiel, one Isaiah, so on and so forth. All these people in the Bible that we look at and we see them as like, this is our encouragement for the future. No. These are the promises given to those people. These are the promises given to Israel and Israel alone. Not to America, not to anybody else, only to Israel. And my big issue is we act a lot of times like God and the things that happen in this world are like a formula that we can figure out. And I'm guilty of doing that myself. But that's not it. God's not a formula to figure out. There's no secret prayer that we have to pray and no secret promise that we have to make in order to get God to do something that we want him to do. You know, a lot of people like to quote C.S. Lewis, he's not a tame lion. And yes, that is true, even though that's a very overused line. Still a very good one. But, I mean, he's not a tame God. He does what he wants to do. He works the way that he wants to work. You know, by every stretch of what humans could understand at the time, God should have chosen the oldest child. But he didn't. Between Jacob and Esau, he chose Jacob to be the father of Israel. But even then, within the tribes of Israel, he didn't choose Reuben, the oldest, but he also didn't choose Benjamin, the youngest. He chose who he was going to choose to be the father of the nation Israel, to lead to the lineage of Jesus. God does what he wants to do, and there are things that are out of our control that we'll never be able to control. And that's part of what this game reminds me of, is like, there are things that we're never going to be able to understand. There are things that we're never going to be able to control. There are things that no matter how much we try and how much we do, we're not going to fix things. And that's why it's not as important for us to try to change the world. It's important for us to be obedient with what God has put in front of you. For some of us, that means taking care of our family. Perhaps even if we try, we're not in a position where we can reach thousands of souls for God. Perhaps we can reach thousands of souls for God, but we're not in a position to build a family. Perhaps you don't have a relationship with God yet. In which case, that which God has put in front of you is to know him and to learn who he is. To read about not only how he created the world, but how he made us so that we could be with him. And then to know him through Jesus, to ask him, to say, I have an eternal problem, God. I have sinned. I've done things that are wrong. I have done things that are evil, not just in your sight, but even in the sight of the world. And I can't fix this problem myself. I need you to fix it forever. Maybe the thing that God has put in front of you right now is just knowing him. Just like in the game. Hundreds of choices that you could make. Hundreds upon hundreds of choices you can make with different outcomes, but in the end, the revolt was coming anyways. There are going to be a lot of things in this world that we can't change. We may not be able to change the way that an election swings, no matter how hard we scream on Facebook or Twitter, guilty as charged. We may not be able to persuade somebody who's dead set on not knowing God. That's not our life. We're only supposed to be responsible for what God has put in front of us. And so I encourage you to take some time and to really pray about what God is going to do in your life today. Ask him, what's in front of me right now? Are you asking me to reach out to someone who's lost? Or today are you having me do something for my family? Or do I just need to spend some time with you? Look at your life today. Don't worry about the endings that you're going to try to... I think you guys saw, like, the more I tried to look ahead and reach a particular ending, the more lost I kind of became. Focus on what God is putting in front of you right now. Because right now, it's the only thing you can really control. And God has put something in front of you right now. Ask him what it is, and do that. That's all I got for you guys right now. I've loved this game. It's been a great game, and if this is your first introduction to the game, this music that you're hearing is from the game itself, and it's a wonderful story. I encourage you to go back to the beginning of this playlist and watch or listen to the series through. It's a long series, but I think that you'll find a lot of enjoyment of it. It's like watching like the Lord of the Rings series or trilogy, or the Star Wars movies. It's a whole saga's worth of material, and then come back and listen to this again and see it from another perspective. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. So peace out, homies, and I'll see y'all soon.